In business today, three things to know. First, Portugal crash. A bank's finances run ashore and shocks the world markets. Why is Europe still so shaky? Then, hacked again. The U.S. accuses China of infiltrating government personnel records. What are the Chinese up to, and can the U.S. ever stop them? And in the corner office, former NFL superstar wide receiver Terrell Owens on business after football. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Portugal is a country of just 10 million people, but somehow they made a mess of everyone's day. Or more specifically, one bank that accounts for about a fifth of Portugal's banking business. U.S. equities spent most of the day making up for losses across Europe following news that the Portugal bank, Espírito Santo International, had missed some loan payments. Now, that caused turmoil in the European markets because investors are still worried that Europe's financial system remains shaky. Here in the U.S., the Dow had to crawl back from an early 180-point sell-off, and while the markets finished down, they did recoup about half of the early losses once investors realized that Europe probably overreacted. Here are the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 70 points. That's about 110 points better than its lows to 16,915. The S&P 500 pulling back just 8 and 15, and the Nasdaq down 22.83, about 0.5%. Taking a look at some of the stocks we're watching today in light of corporate earnings season. Barracuda Networks announcing earnings for their first quarter. After the bell, Barracuda took in $87.6 million of revenue, beating expectations by about 4%. The cloud storage company said subscriptions were coming in rapidly due to its growing portfolio of user-friendly products. Barracuda closing up 66 cents. Vox International releasing its quarterly earnings after the bell as well. The consumer electronics company reporting $186.9 million in revenue this quarter, which is in line with predictions. Vox credited steady sales of new products as well as quality discount programs for its solid profits. Vox closing at $8.82, down a penny. And Family Dollar fell shy of expectations in its third quarter, announcing revenue of $81 million. It brought in 50% more than the same quarter last year. The discount store said a tough economy hurt sales. Family Dollar closing down 12 cents. A tough economy, doesn't that why Family Dollar exists? It's not Family $100. Now for a look at commodities, gold closing up 12.30 and oil closing up 59 cents to 102.88. Weekly jobless claims fell as the labor market continued improvements. Initial claims dropped by 11,000 to a seasonally adjusted 304,000. And wholesale trade grew by 0.7% in May, following a 1.3% gain in April. Wholesale trade is considered one data point in the strength of the economy, but it is not as important as the durable goods orders number. Jeff DeMaso is Director of Research at Advisor Investors and is here to explain what happened in Portugal, why we care, and the other economic news of the day. Jeff, welcome back to Arise Exchange.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
Okay, so Portugal, very small country, small bank. We woke up this morning to all of the headlines that something happened and everyone went running for the hills. What happened and why do we care?
Well, so it's not so much the bank itself that's drawing all the attention. It's really the risk of contagion. Everyone's kind of asking, is it a symptom or a sign that this is going to spread beyond just Portugal, beyond just this bank, and go across Europe? And we'll have a replay of something like 2011. That's the big concern for investors.
And is it a valid concern? There hasn't been a whole lot of information about the bank's specific finances now. That's what I was reading, that there's a lot of lack of transparency here.
There is a lot of lack of transparency. The ownership structure is weird. There's multiple layers of ownership. So that's part of the problem there. And with that lack of transparency, people are losing confidence. And a lot of the banking system is built on confidence. So again, it comes back to that concern is this maintained? Does Portugal have this, ring-fenced, for lack of a better term, or will it spread across the rest of Europe?
And there does raise the larger issue of where the regulators are again, and whether regulators knew that the bank was potentially in trouble. The bank hasn't failed by any means, but it has missed some loan payments, and now the regulators are requesting that it put in more money into the bank. But that does shake some investor confidence that maybe European regulators in some of the countries are not on top of it.
Yeah, well, Portugal's pretty adamant in the regulators there that the bank itself is fine. It's really the parent company that missed the payments. And there's been some questions for a number of months. The Wall Street Journal had an article about the parent company back in December, raising questions about how it's financing some of its debt and how it's valuing some assets. So there have been some questions there. I think the regulators are on top of the bank. But again, it comes back to consumer or investor confidence in the banking system.
And boy, the U.S. equities really recovered pretty quickly. So, you know, there was some early selling largely because of pre-market orders, I imagine. And those who sold probably got hurt later on because the markets came back pretty steadily. Why?
They did. I mean, markets came back almost all the way back into the green, almost made gains on the day until it pulled back at the end of the day. I think it was really just a knee-jerk reaction. Again, a lot of different players in the market, people with different time horizons. If you're a trader, often you'll take the approach of, sell first and ask questions later. And it seems like that's what happened in the market.
And is it true that the U.S. market and investors seem to be just focused on what's going on really here in the U.S.? I mean, they have, if you look at Iraq, and if you look at Israel, and if you look at Syria, and you look at all these international crises, it took a small bank in Portugal to rattle them. Yeah. And then they were like, eh.
Well, it's often the risk that you're not thinking about and you don't see.
Right.
Because clearly all those conflicts are big and in the headlines, human toll.
That's a very good point. It's what you don't expect out there.
Didn't see that coming.
All right, let's talk about the economy here and the Fed. You looked at what the Fed did today. Any surprises from the Fed regarding cutting back, for example, its bond buying program in October?
No, that's what the market was expecting. In my view, it was kind of no new news there. Expecting them to finish in October, barring any big shock, which they've always said they'll pay attention to the data. And then a rate hike sometime in 2015. Again, that seems to be consensus in my view, so it wasn't anything too new there.
And I guess the surprise for the markets then will be if they need to move more aggressively on interest rates, because there are still a whole bunch of economists out there who say inflation is really worse than anybody is admitting to right now.
Yep, there's a number of comments talking about inflation. They're talking about tightness in the job market, really things that aren't on a lot of people's radar and not so much on the Fed's radar. They're going to continue to be data dependent.
Is there a way to protect yourself if you're an investor from that right now?
If you're worried about inflation, inflation-protected securities tips, Treasury bonds that are linked to inflation can offer some protection.
Okay. Jeff DeMaso, Director of Research with Advisor Investments. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, see you soon. And coming up, Chinese hackers breach U.S. government computers, what they get away with, and later. The founder of Essence Magazine on building a brand for African-American women. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Song Hai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. Hackers from China have infiltrated a U.S. government database that held personal information for every federal employee. The hackers targeted people applying to high security clearance positions, and the breach has cybersecurity and counterterrorism authorities now on high alert. Secretary of State John Kerry condemned the attacks during a visit to Beijing and referred to stern talks he had with Chinese officials.
We also continued our conversations on cybersecurity and cyber theft. The loss of intellectual property through cyber has a chilling effect on innovation and investment. Incidents of cyber theft have harmed our businesses and threatened our nation's competitiveness.
Joining us now for more on what this means for the government and for the economy is Scott Schober, cybersecurity expert and Berkeley Veritonic Systems CEO. Scott joins us on the phone. Scott, what are the Chinese accused of getting away with here?
Well, certainly the fact that they were able to, again, tap into this remote site and get this stolen information about federal employees' information. And it's not just general information, but really it's personal information that they have to put into the system to apply for secret clearance. And this is very confidential information, and to have that out there in the hands of these Chinese hackers is extremely dangerous.
And you believe that these Chinese hackers are at least supported to some extent by the Chinese government?
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation back and forth, but more than likely that is the case. And certainly if that is proven true, which it'll probably will be with time, it helps us to see the danger of this if they have access to this level of information where it truly is top secret clearance information on personal level.
Now, Secretary of State John Kerry said he had, quote, stern talks. He wagged his finger at them, basically, with the Chinese. I don't know what that means, because we don't seem to be in much control of stopping the situation.
Yeah, you make a good point. In fact, that even was on the agenda there for the annual strategic economic dialogue. That was one of the agenda points. They were going to meet on that. It was supposedly canceled from China's side, but they had some sidebar where they did discuss it, and he had some stern comments that he claims that he makes. But it makes you wonder, are they even willing to talk about it or negotiate it? Because they're really in disagreement on the two issues.
Yeah, and the issue then has to come down to defense. What can the U.S. government do, basically, to protect its own computers? We've talked about the corporate espionage issue, and obviously the U.S. government just recently indicted some high-level Chinese officials about corporate espionage. But these are government computers, and it is true we're probably spying on everybody ourselves, but we need to protect ourselves. Is the technology out there to do that?
Yes, it certainly is. It does cost a lot of money, and it's got to be put into the infrastructure and the monitoring. And to some degree, they have it there, and they are monitoring. In fact, when federal authorities did detect that there was a breach there, this threat, they were instantly blocked them and cut them from the network. It just didn't happen quick enough, unfortunately. The challenge and problems from a governmental standpoint is the credibility is challenging talking to China because of all the Edward Snowden leaks with NSA spying on Huawei and many other companies.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if the stern talks are, the stern words are meaningless anyway, and that we just have to improve what we do here. Other governments hacking our systems, you think?
Certainly. In fact, if you talk to different government officials, the U.S. government computers are hacked on average multiple times throughout the day. However, they rarely are able to penetrate and get through. In this case, they were able to get through and get this confidential information, but certainly the U.S. government computers are continually a target, as well as other countries are continually a target by these different hacking groups.
Scott, is this where the new war is going to be waged in cyberspace?
Absolutely. If you look at all the focus, where is the money being spent? Where is the education now? You can go to just about any credible university and actually get a degree in cyber. So it's telling you where the future is, and it's important for each of us to protect ourselves and our confidential information on a personal level, business level, and, of course, the government's got to step it up as well.
Okay, Scott Schober, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you, Andrew.
Time now for our business ticker stories making headlines across the nation. Despite being deemed illegal by the U.S. Supreme Court, the video streaming startup Aereo believes it can still operate like a cable TV service. Filing papers with the New York District Court, the company says it now considers itself a cable provider, and if it can obtain a license, is entitled to then get licenses to retransmit television stations. The company suspended its services last month after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Aereo violated broadcasters' copyrights by selling programming online without paying those license fees. Well, things have quickly spiraled out of control at the probate trial of Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling and his wife Shelley. Even the judge called it disturbing when the 80-year-old blurted out to his wife, quote, "Stay away from me, pig." Sterling also denounced the NBA from the witness stand, saying he would never sell the team and vowed a lifetime of lawsuits against the league. His lawyers are challenging Shelley's authority to sell the club to former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. Motorcycle company Harley-Davidson is joining their automaker cousins by getting into the recall fray. Harley-Davidson is recalling more than 66,000 touring and CVO touring motorcycles because the front wheel can lock up without warning. Bikes with anti-lock brakes built between July 2013 and May 2014 are included in the recall. The company says it has reports of 5 crashes related to the problem. And Belgium. Soccer players might have lost in the World Cup, but one Belgian beauty is winning in the modeling business. This 17-year-old was rooting for her team when a photo of her went viral. The pictures made the rounds on Twitter and then newspapers around the world. Soon after, L'Oreal offered the teen a modeling contract. Belgium was eliminated by Argentina in the World Cup. Edward Lewis has become one of the most successful and respected magazine publishers in the country since founding Essence magazine more than 4 decades ago. The magazine, initially targeting black women, is now widely read among all backgrounds, and he is the author of The Man from Essence. And it is an honor, sir, to have you on this program. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Boy, the publishing industry is a challenging one, and it certainly was even in 1970 when you started. So you didn't have much of a background in it. Why did you target a demographic that I imagine the first challenge was to convince Madison Avenue that black women had buying power?
No doubt about it. There was just the other women's magazines not dealing with the beauty, intelligence, and aspirations of black women. So the idea of bringing a magazine that will celebrate her beauty was an idea whose time had come. And I came together with my 4 partners, 4 black men, who wanted to start something, do something very meaningful for our community in celebrating black women. So that's why we came into the marketplace, because the other women's magazine were not doing their job.
Okay, so when you started having conversations with advertisers, what were those conversations like at Madison Avenue? Because we watch Mad Men, which was only a few years earlier than 1970, and I could see these conversations not going very well.
The first issue of Essence, we had 13 pages of ads, and then June and July, we had 5 pages each. So you can well imagine trying to tell the story, trying to convince them of a market that was so important because how black women were perceived: uncouth, loudmouth, unfeminine, didn't have money, and poor on no welfare. So we had to craft a strategy that talked about the buying power, how she's a striver, how important she is as a decision-making within our community, and that's what we had to overcome.
Did you get pushback from black men at all in this process?
No, we did not. And in fact, we got a lot of support from black women. And I've often been asked, why don't you start a magazine for black men? Black women read in general.
And by the way, women had the buying power in the households. And it took advertisers a while to realize that, but they certainly do.
They are definitely decision makers.
I understand Hugh Hefner was an investor in this magazine.
Yes, he did.
How did that happen?
He made the investment in us in 2000, $250,000, and he really made a business decision about investing in the magazine because he understood, starting Playboy, who was reading Playboy, significant number of black men. So he concluded that if black men are reading Playboy, there must be an opportunity for black women to have their own publication in which they would be supportive and would read too.
How did the magazine's focus change over the years and you be able to keep up with the times of the readership that you were targeting?
I give big kudos to all the editors-in-chiefs who have been a part of the Essence story. And we started out as a one-dimensional fashion magazine, and then we quickly realized that black women are multidimensional. She's got a wealth of information that she wants to have, and so we've evolved into a women's service, lifestyle-oriented magazine.
And strong journalism as well, that's in the magazine.
I feel most proud of how we have dealt with issues, apartheid, AIDS, abuse in terms of between men and women. And so we've taken on these issues, and which I think is important because women want to know about these things. We never wanted to condescend to our reader. And so we felt that we should address these things editorially.
When you wrote this book, what are some of the things that you learned about yourself and the magazine that you did not know until you started putting it on paper?
Well, you know, it's trying to think about all the things that happen with respect to putting this together. It's an extraordinary journey. I came to have an appreciation of my relationship with my dad, which I didn't have, which I recounted, which I thought was important. Certainly, my sheroes in my family were my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts, and that gave me the sensitivity to have an appreciation, hopefully, in terms of how I interacted with women, and understanding the importance of, even more so, of cash. Cash is king, queen, jack, and everything else.
And conserving cash and spending
and conserving cash because it's so important.
And speaking along those lines, how does the publishing industry survive today? What is it doing? Is Essence doing the right thing and surviving?
Essence is doing the right thing and surviving very nicely. I just returned from New Orleans. We celebrated the 20th anniversary of the Essence Music Festival, 550,000
Well, what
people.
you've done is you've expanded the brand also beyond just the publication.
Indeed. And one must remember, too, magazines and newspapers may not be making as much money as they once did 10 years ago. They're still making a lot of money.
They're still generating a lot of cash.
And
they still have the brand,
business.
whether you read it online or whether you read it in the print.
It's about brands.
Edward Lewis, the man from Essence, creating a magazine for black women. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up on Arise Ahead, one thief who stole nearly $500,000 in loose change. He's our favorite person of the day, and he's next. You're watching Arise Exchange.
The great thing about Arise Entertainment 360 is that we cover the 360 of entertainment, food, fashion, lifestyle, culture. We're able to cover it all. And the thing I love most about the show is we're able to do a stunning combination of high and low. So we can talk about Rihanna on the red carpet, but we can also speak about high art with people like Sanford Biggers and Hank Willis. We actually spend quality time with our guests, and we really get to know them. It's really intriguing because we get a 360 look at our guests.
One of the great things about Arise News, it is truly a multicultural global channel that is paying attention to communities of all different kinds, not just here in the United States, not just in Africa, but all around the world. As we're giving a voice to the people that don't traditionally have the kind of a voice that a mass media organization can have. You're getting here at Arise News that you're not going to find at the other networks is a unique perspective, and I think that's part of what Arise is here to do.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, it is a person who went about stealing nearly $500,000 the hard way, 1 quarter at a time. Thomas Ricca, who appeared in court, tanned and rested, as you can see, has been sentenced to 5 years probation for stealing $460,000 of quarters from parking meters in Ridgewood, New Jersey. He stole $500,000, and as Johnny here in the studio points out, he's not going to jail, only in New Jersey. They'll probably elect him to the legislature, Johnny. Ricca has been a public works inspector who had access to the storage locker where they kept the quarters. He tampered with the security camera, stuffed coins in a bag, and then deposited them at numerous banks to avoid detection. Because he stole quarters, prosecutors say it's hard to know how much he ran off with, but they think it's pretty close to the $460,000 he has admitted to taking. Now, under the plea deal, Ricca is only paying back half the money, and he's doing so by check, not by loose change, I should add. And Ricca, who once earned $86,000 a year, will be banned from working for the government in New Jersey for life, you think? And so, heads you lose, tails you lose, except he's keeping half the money. Thomas Ricca is our favorite person of the day. Coming up next, Terrell Owens' latest moves are not on the football field. We'll speak with the former star receiver here on Arise Exchange. Please stay with us.
If I was building my own network, it would be for the people, by the people. It would be very diverse. It would be with every culture you can think of.
If I was to start my own news network, it would reflect positive and negative within the continents and the countries around the world.
I think that I would be more looking towards young people.
If I were to build my own news network, it would look like New York City. Old, young, fresh, hip, classic.
If I was to build my own news network, I would just have people from all over who are very connected and diverse.
If I was to build my own news network, my own world network, I would love a correspondent in every country, every location, every city. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic, but how cool would it be to get local stories from the impoverished country, the impoverished city that we don't know about?
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
In tonight's corner office, 6-time Pro Bowler and former NFL superstar Terrell Owens. Owens made history on the field as a 6-time Pro Bowler in his 15 seasons with the league, amassing countless awards during a colorful career. He's now tackling new businesses off the field, and he joins us here on Arise Exchange to talk about his latest endeavors. Terrell, it's great to have you on board. Thank you.
Good. How are you?
So, when you were playing, you started very early building sort of this personal brand, and we talk about brands a lot here. Now you're lending your name to investments. How do you go about choosing what you want to do and what you want to pursue?
Well, I have to choose wisely, and as you said, I was building a brand, which I had no idea what I was doing. I was just really going out there playing with passion for the love of the game. playing football, and now, you know, I've established myself with a household name. I think everyone knows me because of some of the things that I've done, whether it's good or bad, but I think for the most part, it's the way I played the game. I played it with a lot of passion.
There's never any question about your play on the field.
Absolutely. And again, everybody's going to have their opinions as far as, and haven't had any problems off the field either. So I feel very fortunate to be raised by a lady, by my grandmother, who taught me right from wrong, and I was able to basically, you know, really maintain some dignity about myself.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned not having difficulties off the field, and that's really kind of important because making the transition after playing, because whatever sport you're in, it's a short career, and there's so much more left to do. Right. How has that transition gone? I mean, did you find it very difficult? I mean, is it a constant challenge?
Well, yeah, it's a constant challenge. I've gone through some ups and downs in my life and in my career, and you know, obviously run into some financial issues due to some negligence of my financial advisors.
And that's a problem for NFL players.
Absolutely.
Does the league do a good enough job, by the way, of giving you guys the help, the tools?
They do. They do put a plan in place. The NFLPA does a great job of really putting guys that have been in those situations, myself included, to try to avoid the pitfalls of really just not being aware, not managing your financial portfolio. And I think that was part of the reason why I fell in that pitfall.
I was looking, you're in several different businesses and several different kind of areas, and I want to talk to you about them. The clothing lines, technology a little bit, and fitness, not surprising, because you certainly were known for working out a lot. Why don't we start with technology, because you're doing some investments in apps, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we have this, I'm involved with Hang With. I think 50 Cent is very much so involved, as well as some others. And it's a broadcasting app where you can stream live wherever you are. I mean, if we were here right now and we were broadcasting, if you download the app, people would be able to view and see what you're doing at that very moment and given time. And I think there's a number of celebrities, entertainers out there that do a lot of interesting things that a lot of fans of our fans want to know what we're up to. And so it gives them an opportunity to kind of look inside on our lives and what we're doing.
Do you get involved in the technology platform as well to learn about the technology, or are you focused pretty much on building the brand and being the spokesperson?
You get a little bit of both worlds when you're involved, and so for the most part, I'm on the other side. I don't get into the tech world too much, but I try to do what I can as far as help them build that brand, obviously with the exposure and what I have to offer as for the fan base.
The clothing line. So many people are in clothing lines. Why are you doing this, and what does "what do" mean? What's the message?
I think for me, it's twofold. Obviously, I think everybody knows fitness is where this world has gone. Yeah. For myself, I think it's something I kind of fell into, really maintaining my level of fitness during my football career. But the message, using my initial "what to do" on the T-shirts, is really, as it says in the background, to motivate, to give back, to inspire. And that's for kids that, like myself, that were at an age that wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough, to give them that encouragement, to motivate them to go do the extra.
Yeah, and do you think that there's enough messaging to kids today that they can overcome these issues?
I think if the right people are put in place, and I think I'm putting myself in that situation because I became very successful, just not allowing myself to be average. I wasn't a great high school standout, not even a college, but I worked myself into a position where I was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in 1996.
Are you done with playing?
I would love to play another year.
You want to go back to the NFL?
Of course I would love to.
Been talking to anybody?
I haven't talked to anybody in particular, but I've been keeping myself in shape. I know I can play the game at a productive level, given the fact that obviously when things are brought up like this about me playing, number one, they're going to bring up my age. Number two, they're going to bring up the things that I've done in the past, and I can sit here and say that I've grown a great deal, from where I was 10 years ago.
We only have about 15 seconds, so it's quick.
Okay.
Do you think the league is tackling the concussion issue enough? Do they need to do more than just pay out players?
I think they're doing what they need to do. And right now, I think they're tackling just right now the financial part. Obviously, they're going to get into the point of really trying to see what we can do to protect the players.
Okay, Terrell Owens, thank you so much. Good to
Thank you.
see you. Tomorrow on the Rise Exchange, why hits at the box office are stacking the toy shelves this summer. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. Julian Phillips will be here tomorrow, and I'll see you on Monday.